Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be reading Women in Science, Temple Grandin. It's a story about Temple Grandin, who, as you guessed, was a woman who was a scientist also. It says, a pioneer in animal science and autism awareness. Let's read it. Important places in Temple's life. Temple became a college professor at Colorado State University. Temple attended school in New Hampshire, just north of Boston. Temple took her master's degree in Arizona State University in the Southwest, which is here. Temple received her PhD from the University of Illinois in the Midwest, which is here. Temple was born in Boston in the Northeast, which is here. Look at that map real quick. All right. Throughout history, there have been many women involved in progressing science and technology. Temple Grandin is one of them. Her inventions in farm technology have changed the way that livestock are treated across North America and all over the world. Before, animals were usually treated terribly and only suffered before they died. Thanks to Temple, many of them live far happier lives. Temple, who has autism, has also been a hard-working campaigner for autism awareness. When she was growing up, no one knew much about it at all. Today, there is many more people understanding of autism and how it can affect people thanks to the work of people like Temple. This book tells Temple's story. A girl from Boston. Mary Temple Grandin, born on August 29th, 1947 in Boston, Massachusetts, into a larger family. She was the eldest of 4 children, with 2 younger sisters and a brother. Although her birth name was Mary, since childhood she was called Temple, her middle name, to avoid confusion with another girl named Mary who worked for the family. The name stuck. Playing outdoors. As a child, Temple loved being outside. She spent hours flying her kite, playing in the woods, and building things from scratch. When she was old enough, she spent the summers working on a farm, caring for the horses. She fed them and cleaned their stalls. So here's a picture of Boston where she grew up. Mother and father. Temple's mother was an actress and singer. Richard, her father, was a real estate agent and heir to Grandin Farms. Her grandfather on her mother's side was also the inventor of the autopilot in airplanes. The largest wheat farm. Wheat farming in the Grandin family dates back to the 19th century. Temple's great-grandfather, John Livingston Grandin, and his brothers, Elijah Bishop Grandin and William James Grandin, established their farm in North Dakota. It became the largest wheat farm in the United States at the time. So here's the 3 brothers. A different child. Temple's mother could see that her child was different from others. She behaved differently and had difficulty learning how to talk. But Temple was never diagnosed with autism as a child because so little was known about the disorder in those days. Educational games. At home, Temple had a nanny who played with her for hours each day. She learned important social skills such as waiting and taking turns. Temple and her mom. There's a drawing of her mom and her. A visit to the doctor. When Temple was a toddler, her mother took her to see a neurologist. At the time, lots of doctors recommended that children like Temple be sent away to special homes, but this one recommended to have a speech therapist. Temple's family was determined that she should live as a normal life as possible, so Temple kept at home with her family instead of being sent away. So here's her playing an educational game with her nanny. She says, "I think this one matches with this object." And her nanny says, "Good job." Signs and symptoms of autism. Today we know that autism has many different symptoms and that they vary from child to child. Common symptoms of autism in younger children can include finding it hard to learn to talk, finding it hard to understand other people talking, preferring to play alone rather than with other children, feeling uncomfortable about hugging or touching people, finding it hard to cope with a group of people. Some kids with autism also have special skills in music, art, math, or visual memory. What is autism? Autism is a disorder that can affect all kinds of people, from brilliant computer programmers to someone who never learns to talk. The disorder usually begins in early childhood. It is a condition that can cause someone to have trouble learning, communicating, and forming relationships with people. Around 1/3 of people with autism are nonverbal, which means they do not speak at all. Communication. It is not just talking and listening that those with autism can find difficult. It can be other forms of communication, such as tone of voice or facial expressions, that are hard to understand. Routine. Those with autism tend to enjoy routine and will repeat certain behaviors, such as choosing to eat the same foods or walking the same routes. This is her as a child who's overstimulated. She says, "This is all getting too much for me." 4 times more likely. Boys are roughly 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls. So here's a drawing of 4 boys and 1 girl with autism. There's the 4 boys and there's the 1 girl. Almost 2%. Autism affects almost 2% of people worldwide. In the United States, 3.5 million are living with the disorder. The autism spectrum. In medicine, some conditions are seen on spectrums because they can have many different symptoms and range from being mild to severe. For example, some people find speaking difficult for their entire lives. Others, like Temple, are able to speak as naturally as anyone once they have been taught. Life at school. School was difficult for Temple. She was bullied because of the way she spoke. And since she found communication and speech difficult, it only made it harder. She ended up leaving Beaver County Day School at 14 because of conflicts with other children. Private boarding school. When Temple was 14, her mother sent her to Mountain Country School, a boarding school in New Hampshire for young people with behavioral problems. So here's her at school, where someone's being mean to her. "Miss, everyone is being mean to me." "Miss, it's not true." "Kids, please calm down." The teacher doesn't seem too happy, does she? Holiday work. During the school holidays, Temple still worked hard. She had a job sewing clothes at her parents' home neighborhood. Finding a mentor. At her new school, Temple met William Carlock, a science teacher who had previously worked for NASA. This was an important meeting for Temple, and Carlock's teaching had a big impact on her. Later in her life, she said that he had focused on her underlying talents and engaged with her on her own terms instead of trying to change her. So here's where she went to school, at Beaver County Day School. Temple's hug box. As a teenager, Temple experienced high levels of anxiety as a result of her autism, especially in social situations. Noisy, crowded areas often made her feel tense, but like many people with autism, she found that the feeling of pressure was soothing. Since hugging or being touched by other people was uncomfortable, she needed a solution. Visiting her aunt's ranch. One day, while she was visiting her aunt's ranch in Arizona, she saw how squeeze chutes used on the reach to restrain cows were highly effective at calming them down. So here's a squeeze chute for cows. The cow steps in, the machine closes around the cow, and pressure is applied. And now the cow is calm. Temple's invention. Temple had a clever idea to mime the feeling of being hugged by a person. She called it the hug box. It is made from two large boards of wood which form a V shape. The inside is lined with thick, soft padding. The boards squeeze the person inside. The pressure can be controlled by the box's user. Hug boxes are now used throughout the United States to help autistic adults and children. Notes on squeeze chutes. Usually used for cows. Apply compression without hurting the animal. Pressure is applied evenly across the body. So here is a squeeze chute. There's the cow. And then here is Temple's invention, the squeeze box. College education. After graduating from high school, Temple studied for a psychology degree at Franklin Pierce College. At college, she became interested in animal behavior, particularly that of farm animals such as cows and pigs. An accomplished student, Temple has earned a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. That's a lot of college. Animal behavior. While studying for her PhD in animal science, Temple became interested in how animals react to their environment. For her dissertation, a long piece of scholarly research, she looked at pigs on farms and how their brains develop in response to their surroundings. Temple was also interested in management and welfare of farm animals. Here's some calm, happy pigs. What pigs like? Temple discovered that pigs are highly sensitive to their environment. She found that they are calmer and will fight with each other less when they have access to regular contact with other pigs and humans, and toys such as hanging cloths. So here's what pigs like. Human contact, other pigs, and hanging cloths to play with. Most pigs look like they're having fun. Getting into the meat industry. Before Temple became involved in the meat industry, animals bred for meat were usually treated badly. They were generally unhappy and suffered before they died. Temple set out to change this. Earning respect. Temple had to work hard to gain the respect of people in the meat industry. It was made harder by the fact that she was one of the only women doing her job. Farmers. Most of the farmers at the time did not want to change their farming methods. These farmers don't look too happy, do they? Secretaries. Temple remembers that there were very few women working in the feed yards, but all the secretaries in the offices would be women. Here's some of the secretaries. McDonald's. In the 1990s, Temple found a helpful partner to work with. McDonald's, the largest fast food chain, took her on as a consultant to improve the happiness of their animals. She was able to bring changes to ensure animals were being well treated. So here's where they keep the livestock, is what this man says. And this man says, poor animals. This one says, I don't see anything wrong with it. He looks kind of grumpy. Animals are not things. Temple strongly believes that livestock animals should be treated better when they are alive. They have feelings just like humans. Animals. Temple Grandin argues that animals are not simply human property. They should be protected and looked after. Here's some crowded animals. They don't look too happy, do they? Crowded places. Temple has said that she feels a deep connection with animals. She has spoken widely about the anxiety she feels in loud, crowded public places, caused by her autism and how she can feel threatened. This is very similar to how animals can feel, especially in scary places, such as an arbiter, where their lives come to an end. Here's her in a crowded place. What animals need. What does an animal need to have a good life? This is what Temple wondered when she wrote her book, Animals Make Us Human. She explores what is needed for animals' well-being. Some of the things needed include access to food, freedom to move around, and freedom from pain and injury. Animals also need the freedom to behave normally as they would in the wild. Written by Temple Grandin, Animals Make Us Human. Temple's best-selling book uses her experience of autism to give a unique view on animals, how they think and feel. Importance of improving the lives of cattle. Temple has devoted much of her research to improving slaughterhouses, the treatment of livestock animals. She has come up with ideas for arbiters that reduce the stress and anxiety animals feel when they are there. Curved loading chutes. Loading chutes are the corridors that lead cows to the room where they are killed. As Temple discovered from her research, cattle are very aware of their surroundings and become easily distressed. Her new design for the chute is curved so the cows cannot see what is in front of them. This stops them from panicking. Here's her. That's actually what Temple Grandin looks like. Holding device. Also designed for beef cattle, Temple's device for holding cows can be adjusted to the size of the animal inside. They are essential for keeping cows still and calm while they are transported for slaughter. Before Temple, these devices were not gentle and often squeezed the cow too tightly. Her own company. Temple had set up her own company, Grandin Livestock Handling Systems, which designs and produces equipment for farms. Many of her designs for improving animal welfare have been introduced in farms across the United States. Scoring system. Temple has developed a scientifically based scoring system for judging the welfare of animals while they are going through arbiters. This gives farmers a better understanding of how their animals are feeling and can adjust their practices to improve animals' welfare. So here's her curved loading chute. Animals enter here. Here's some cows going in. The curve hides what's ahead, so see, this cow can't see what's happening here. Holding device for cattle. So here's the entrance chute. Here's the ramp, it goes down. Then it walks through there's the conveyor. Globally successful. Temple has made a lasting impact to the way that livestock are treated. Her changes in arbiters have improved the experience for animals and made the places more humane. Temple's inventions in farming technology can be found all around the world. She's helped train workers at over 200 slaughterhouses globally. United States, so right here. Temple's designs for livestock processing are used across roughly half of all cattle farms in North America. Mexico, right there in the yellow. Temple's design of a curved chute system is in place in Mexico. In Australia, which isn't on here, but it's right behind here. In parts of Australia, Temple's holding device for keeping a cow still is used. Awards. Temple has received many awards for her work, including an award from the World Organization for Animal Health for excellent work improving animal welfare. She was also elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Controversy. Many activists continue to argue that innovations developed so far in the meat industry don't go far enough in combating animal cruelty. Some people think that it's impossible to ever construct a humane arbiter. Temple argues that an ethical meat industry can be achieved if her ideas are built upon. So here's some protesters. Here's some real-life protesters. Sharing her story. While being busy with her career in animal farming, Temple has found the time to campaign for autism awareness. She has been praised for breaking down stigma around the disorder and helping people to understand how those with autism think. It is important to her that people have a better understanding. Here's Temple Grandin giving a talk. Here's her saying, autism isn't something to be afraid of. Public speaking. Temple has toured the United States making speeches about autism. She is now in high demand to give talks, particularly to audiences who are struggling to understand the disorder, such as parents of autistic children. Movie star. Temple's life story made it onto the screen in 2010 when HBO produced a film about her called Temple Grandin, starring the actress Claire Danes. Big changes. Throughout Temple's lifetime, the public awareness and treatment of people with autism has changed significantly. She has played an important role in bringing change through her speeches, articles, and books. Here's books. Temple has written a number of books on autism and her experience of it. At first, she believed that all people with autism think the same way. Her later works show that she has changed her mind and understands that autistic brains vary greatly. In The Autistic Brain, Thinking Across the Spectrum, which was released in 2013, she writes about the history of autism and explores what it means to be autistic. So here's her books. Here's a timeline of Temple Grandin's life. In 1947, Temple was born. In 1949, Temple is taken to the doctors because of her behavior. In 1962, Temple is inspired by a science teacher, William Carlock. In 1963, Temple begins inventing the hug box. 1966, Temple graduates from high school. In 1970, Temple graduates from Franklin Pierce University, New Hampshire, with a degree in psychology. In 1975, Temple completes her master's degree from Arizona University in animal science. In 1986, Temple writes her first book about autism, Emergence, labeling autistic. Labeled autistic. In 1989, Temple completes her animal science PhD from the University of Illinois. In 1990, Temple becomes a professor of animal science at Colorado State University. In 1992, Temple started working with McDonald's. In 1995, Temple published another book about how she sees the world, Thinking in Pictures. In 2009, Temple wrote her best-selling book, Animals Make Us Human. In 2010, a film about Temple's life is made and wins an Emmy, which is a TV award. In 2013, Temple writes a new book about autism and her experience with it, The Autistic Brain, Thinking Across the Spectrum. That's the end. Thanks for joining us.